Welcome to the Atheist Podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Kelley. Atheist is where we will explore American cultural trends through the lenses of a devout theist
And a devout atheist. We will discuss the messiness of being human.
The latest in social science, psychology, and American culture.
And what any of it has to do with Homo sapiens' longtime preoccupation with religion. All right, welcome back to the Atheist Podcast. We are here to explore our next topic, which is about building community through arts and sports, athletics, and also sort of how those things bring us into experiences of collective effervescence, which is a term going back to our last topic, which was Dr. Keltner, who was the professor whose book we were reading, talked about collective effervescence as one of those ways that people experience awe. So we are going to talk about why building community is important, how we do it, the spaces that we find it, and what it can bring to your life.
Yeah. And why it's particularly important right now in this point in time in our culture.
Yeah, for sure. We were just chatting a second ago off air. So now I'll bring it on air.
Yeah.
But so Scott Galloway, who's a professor at NYU, he wrote a book recently that's called Adrift, and it's 100 different charts that sort of trace, the state of America. And one of the themes that he sort of honed in on was social ties among Americans have declined. So 15% of men and 10% of women say they have no close friends. In 2008, 71% of Americans said that they would talk to their neighbors. In 2017, that was 54%. Marriage rates are about one half of what they were in 1970, and which may or may not be related to the fact that 45% of Democrats and 35% of Republicans said they would have serious concerns about their child marrying someone from the opposite political party. That figure was 4% in the 1960s.
Wow. Interesting that more Democrats would be more opposed than Republicans. Right? Isn't it?
It is interesting.
Yeah. Let's do a little self-reflecting there. Also, from some other statistics, I've been writing a couple pieces on my Substack about the ideas of building community and building meaningful community, specifically what church spaces look like and don't look like. And a recent Gallup poll in 2020, 47% of Americans said they belong to a church, synagogue, or mosque. That's the first time that number has dropped below 50%.
Wow.
Ever. So 50%, that was 50% in 2018, just 2 years earlier, and 70% in 1999. I mean, that's, from 1999 to 2020, down from 70 to 47%. So, and there's been a lot of people writing about this, about like, what do we lose when we lose kind of these institutions of community, and then just also, like you were saying, these just regular kind of everyday, I talk to my neighbor kinds of things that are, non-formal communities, but really important.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of research too around that life satisfaction is derived from it was a study on the good life, and it was the one that I'm going to forget these guys' names, but they did this. It was the Harvard folks.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like 100 years of data, right? Yep. And these guys from Harvard, and then they found these other guys that were in Boston that weren't wealthy, from going to an elite school.
Right.
But they followed them, and they followed their families, and they collected all this data. And basically what the research found was that, happiness is related to the quality of your relationships, but that it was both strong ties, meaning the kind of person that you can call when you're like, man, I'm in trouble, I need help.
Yep.
And, how many of those people do you have in your lives? But then also the kinds of weak ties that you have, which are your experiences of, hey, hey neighbor, your yard's looking good. I liked what you planted. Hey, I'm going to be out of town. Can you feed my cat while I'm away? These sorts of little.
Do you know your neighbor's name?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm guilty.
I know
of that.
my wife will be like, what's her name again?
Yeah.
She's bad with names though.
Yeah, I'm not great. Bill's pretty good with it. But yeah, there have been times in my life where I feel like I haven't been as connected in community or in relationship as I wanted to be. And the litmus test was always for me, do I have somebody I could call to go see a movie right now?
Yeah.
Could I just call somebody, out of the blue and be like, hey, you want to
go see a movie?
Go see a movie.
You can call me. I'll go see a movie anytime.
Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, of course. Justin would do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can think of, if that's a litmus test, fuck, man, I am in good company because I feel like I'm like, man, I could probably on two hands be like, let's go see a movie. I also like seeing movies. Yeah. And I have a lot of people that, who I just see because we see movies sometimes, which is, it's sad that there's, actually, okay, well, here's a little anecdote.
Yeah.
So, because where I work right now, it's the Tivoli building, which used to be a movie theater, which is now a church, which actually was interesting. At first, I was like, this is lame. They got rid of the movie theater, and now it's a church. And
that's a cool theater.
It was a super cool theater, and I still feel a little like I lament that a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that introduction of the church on Del Mar has really transformed the different kinds of people that are coming in and out of that are frequenting businesses on Del Mar. So it's really changed the demographic landscape in a way, which is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's that's curious.
It is. It's a great street, and it's got amazing restaurants, and they want people to be there, and
placing churches in spaces where you might not find churches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for the church, it's good for the community, and it's probably, back to my Jesus thing, it's probably what Jesus would do. Jesus would be where the people would not likely expect him to be.
I'll give you I got another little tangent off that. So they're bringing the trolley back. It's going to be free this time because I think they made $75 the first month that they tried to do it for profit.
$5 million
because it doesn't go anywhere. It's like, I want to go to the history. I mean, I like the history museum, but I'm going to get on a trolley to go to the history museum. I don't think so. So they're bringing it back, and it's free. And this was I'm going to talk about my boss again because he's such an interesting guy. But he was on the board when they were first planning this, and the very first thing he said was, "No one will pay for this." No. What do you...
This is a service.
Yes. And he's like, why are you trying to charge people? And here was their response. Because we don't want the wrong kinds of people to get it. And he said, and then he was like, that was the moment that I was like, I'm not going to be on this committee anymore.
Well, I'll tell you what. Okay. So in our next episode, when we are interviewing Adam and Ben, we're going to give a little history of St. Louis and that idea, that
the wrong
statement,
people,
has been said a couple times. We live in a very segregated city, and so
segregated city in the street that I am talking about, Del Mar, is notorious because it is called the Del Mar Divide. Yep. So that is the street that's sort of the delineating north versus south border. Yep. Which is
dangerous,
yes,
and
cross
and
over.
Safe. Yeah. And it's the work that's being done though to engage community on both sides of the divide, in creative and exciting ways is what is best about the city.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely talk about that in the next episode. So this idea of community and the importance of community, What do you think, Erin? What do you think? You mentioned like the Harvard study and like the health benefits.
Yeah.
Why do you think that all these statistics are happening? Do you like what is
why the decline?
Why the decline in community?
Are on their fucking cell phones.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, I could scroll on the internet or stream television, I suppose. But it's people feel a sense, I think, of, and this is how I feel about technology. It makes us passive in a way that disengages us from life. We get sucked into it in a way that adds no meaning. So I checked my Facebook yesterday for the first time since I guess January, because I had a message from someone from January that I didn't know about. And I think I spent maybe a total of 8 minutes on this website.
Yeah.
And I was like fucking sucked in.
You could
for
feel
those
it.
I was like I'm wildly interested in these pictures, and I don't even ever see these people.
Yep.
I never speak to
Yep.
them.
Oh
like
my gosh.
it literally adds no value to my life, and I was like, I gotta get off this thing as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's just it's a time suck.
When you're like, I'm really curious now about my brother-in-law's sister's baker and her son and what he's doing in college.
Yeah.
No.
What?
What?
But that's the part. It pretends to offer you connection
and intimacy,
and it does the opposite.
Yep.
It pulls you away from being able to be like, oh, hey, my neighbor who I like actually fucking see all the time. Maybe I could know that person, or like my friend who actually lives in this city, or that we could go to the movies. You know, that I don't do that because I am busy being a voyeur or observing other people's lives and trying to like assess is whatever, you know, and then you fall into the trap of comparing, and you know that's also not good for you. But there's just we actually have more time than anybody, any generation in human history to devote to leisure and building and developing community and relationships, and yet we spend more time alone.
Yep.
It's completely fucked.
Well, it is completely fucked. And it occurs to me as you say that, even like you said, streaming television, you know, man, like I am a fan of the streaming television and like the golden age of television and what it has done to like I'm a fan of it. But at the same time, when I was in college, you know, we built community around. I remember my freshman year.
Because you all watch the same show.
We would all watch the same show. So we would gather and watch like you know, this like when Twin Peaks was on. This is going to tell you how old I am. We would gather every week to watch it. And
ours was Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy. Yeah. And I remember one time we like got the time wrong, and so we had to call our friend's mom who was in California, and she had to record it on her VHS and then send it to us so that we could watch it before the next week, right? Like we were so invested, and it was such a part of community. But now you don't even have.
No, everything is fractured because there's so much. There's so much content,
and like you might like the coffee, the talk at the the watering hole, whatever you call that. Water cooler. Thank you, Justin. The water cooler. The talk at the water cooler might be like, yeah, what are you watching these days? Oh, I'm watching The Crown. Great. What are you watching? I'm watching Stranger Things. Great. Okay. And that's it.
And
right?
It's like unless you are actually watching the same thing, which it does happen. And then when it does, it's great. So I was watching episode 3 of The Last of Us, which if you have not watched this show, it is so good. I'm a huge zombie apocalypse person, love, yes, just anything. I love it.
And
but this episode 3, which is not a very zombie apocalypse forward episode.
It's a zombie apocalypse if what's the the British like romantic films like a room of your like a room with a view, kind of like that's what it is. It's a romantic.
It's amazing
zombie.
And I don't think this spoils it. So I don't know if you're like thinking about, I don't think it spoils it.
Just
beware.
Push 15 seconds ahead.
But the thing that was so amazing about it, I watched it and I'm like crying watching it. And then I made my wife watch it because she's not a zombie apocalypse show person. But I'm like, you have to watch this. That's not really what this is. And so we watched it again, and then we were, reflecting and chatting about it after the fact. And I was like, the fact that it's just not something you see.
Yes.
In these sorts of shows, which is these individuals are living the best parts of their lives in the backdrop of like horrible stuff. And they have found this sanctuary with each other.
With each other.
And it's so lovely.
It's so lovely. And can I say that it's a like gay relationship?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I say that just because also part of building community through, that television, media, technology, but the arts, and we're going to be talking about theater too, part of the way it builds community is by showing you the stories, that where you can see yourself in the story.
Yes.
Right?
But I also think it's okay to not. And this is I actually have a little bit of a gripe with this whole, I feel like there's this movement of, I don't see myself in the story. And I want to sometimes be like, yeah, because the story isn't a fucking mirror. It's a window to see somebody else's life and somebody else's experience and through their point of view, as opposed to just like, give me more of my own, which I feel like is very there's a lot of egocentrism, in that.
But when you're supposed to look through a window that's always white and straight.
And there's always, you never ever see that reflection.
Yourself.
Yes, I get it. I mean, I get both sides, but I'm just like, I think maybe you're missing the point of what.
I think that there's just an extra muscle that you need to use when you need to kind of like go through that window and extrapolate that to my life,
as opposed to like, it's just right here.
Yeah. And like white people we've just always been like, white straight people, it's always been like, yeah, that's my story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, would I watch a story about, a black family of, black gay family going through something? Yes, I would.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of people wouldn't, because it just takes that extra. They just take that. They're just not. They haven't exercised that muscle.
Yeah. And that's a good way to phrase it, which is, I think that's right. It's a muscle. Just like anything else, right? It's and I like what you're saying. So it's that, I don't know, that I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking down to people, I guess, but sort of a, I don't know, in the default mode of like, I just want to watch something that like
is about me.
Yeah. Or that I can connect with easily, right?
Yes,
That's not, it doesn't require me to really engage my mental faculties to say like, okay, my muscles, right? That I'm engaging this network to really pay attention to what's going on here and like, what can I learn from it? That's another level, which maybe we can't always expect from other people to always want to do.
Right. Or we need to actually like expect that we all should be able to do it equally.
Yeah. I'm going to go with no. Like there's like no way. There's just no way.
That people all will do that. Yeah.
No,
I know.
No. I want to believe that that's the case. And most of my life is lived in spaces where the people I interact with like could do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, that's just like not the world that we live in.
Well, I'll tell you what though. Here's the beauty of that episode 3.
Yeah.
Is that episode 3, which is exactly what you said, but happens to be happens to be a gay couple.
Yeah.
I've had more straight friends who are maybe have not been maybe have not exercised that muscle in looking through that window very easily, who reached out to me and they were like, have you seen that? That was so beautiful. That was the most beautiful piece of television I've ever seen.
Yes.
So it's also something about the quality and the writing and the acting and how amazing that is.
Yeah. Also, you've got the guy from The Office.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this is way different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just so
yeah.
good.
Yeah. So good.
But yes, though I think the point being, art can bring people together. And actually what I think, I love art and I love theater, but more broadly appealing than any of the things that we're talking about are sports.
Yeah.
Everybody loves sports. And even if you're like a fair weather fan,
which I am.
You're like, oh, so-and-so's in the playoffs. I'm going to get into this.
I'm going to go to the bar now. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, I got to get a jersey. I got to like paint my face. Like, it's like, it flips that collective effervescence, that hive mind switch very quickly.
Yeah. And it becomes kind of a healthy tribalism, right?
That's the goal. That's the hope, right?
That's the
I
hope.
mean, I'm wearing the Saint Hooligans jersey, but like the Hooligans are in the European leagues, right? Is actually like can be a negative thing because people get murdered over soccer games.
Yeah.
But and that's tribalism. And tribalism. So I think the thing to know, right, is it's innate. We tend to fall into tribal sorts of patterns of thinking and being and behavior. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it can be for really good things and super fun and enjoyable. And then sometimes it can turn into chaos and
violence.
Terrible things.
Yeah.
So, that hive switch can get turned on for good or evil, just like so many other things.
For sure. So we have a new soccer team.
Yes.
Here in St. Louis.
They were undefeated 5 games in a row.
I don't know.
First, that's the record for a new MLS franchise.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Our guest later will know for sure.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I'm right.
Have you been to a game yet?
I've not.
No, me neither.
The tickets are like insane. They're so expensive.
Well, and that brings us to another topic too, is, that we might broach with our guests next time, which is theater and sports both tend to exclude parts of community because of the price tag.
Yeah.
Right. And if we talk about if we include in there music concerts.
Oh my God. It's insane. And the other part, which I don't know if this is really pertinent to, but it's like everybody buys all these tickets and then they resell them for more than they are supposed to cost. I'm like, I need some government intervention in this whole this
to
is
help us build
bullshit.
Community. Yes.
Yeah, because you should, I don't know, there should be a section, and they do this in actually going back to our ideas of for sports and theater, like the Cardinals games, you can get cheap seats, and then I believe the Fox does. Or no, sorry, is the Muni.
The Muni
does the cheap seats or free seats or whatever in the back, which so there's places, and that's actually one thing that St. Louis is good about, is offering free access to the arts. Yep. Where
our art museum is free.
You'd spend $30 if you were in a different city to be able to get access to this. And we'll do that. We'll go for a run, and we'll be like, we're just going to jog through the zoo. Yeah. Although you're not really supposed to jog through, apparently.
You can walk.
They'll be like, no, you have to walk. So but you can be out and about. Yeah. And you just pop in.
I always say I'm not native to St. Louis. I moved here when I was 24. No. I don't know, 25 something. But I've been here a long time. But I always say the best thing about St. Louis is Forest Park, where you can go for a walk and you can see a polar bear and a Picasso just by going on your morning walk.
You can.
I mean, it's so amazing.
Cool. It is amazing.
For free.
I know. My wife and I were just literally having the exact same conversation. We were coming back from a run through Forest Park. And I'm just like, I can't, like,
Yeah.
we live right next to this. This is so cool. It's
Yeah.
the greatest thing ever.
And, you know, and that's the other thing about Forest Park is it is a huge park, and, you know, green spaces, and this would go back to our conversation with Belden too, right? That green spaces and urban green spaces are places of community connection.
Yes.
You know, where you know, if you look the north side of Forest Park, the west side, the east side, the south side, you know, and then everybody comes, and it is just, it's a place where you see everybody that lives in your city. Every day when you walk, or jog or bike or whatever. And that's a huge piece. Yeah. That's what I don't think I'll ever move more than 3 miles away from that park in the city.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. We're near Tower Grove Park now, which is another one
great park.
Before we moved over more in the central corridor when we lived in South City, which is over here, we were over in this park all the time. And it's amazing. I actually think Tower Grove, I love Forest Park. Mm-hmm. It's got all the things. It's the crown jewel. I'm not trying to throw shade.
I know.
But Tower Grove I think is actually the best walking or running park.
Yeah.
Because you get shade everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's true. Yeah. It is definitely true.
Forest Park, they got a lot of trees, but that shade, that is hard to come by.
Yes. In the summer in St. Louis, it's hot. Ridiculous. Yeah. And we're sitting here in our studio looking out, like just looking out on Tower Grove Park. Yeah, which is pretty awesome. So, so access to community building events. Our town's really great about that, you know, and, you know, for listeners in other areas, you know, I think that's something to always fight for is, you know, who gets to go to this, you know?
Yeah, who gets to go to this? And then, so in St. Louis, how do you end up with Forest Park and all those free amenities? It's a tax structure that the St. Louis City residents pay 1% tax to fund so that stuff stays free. So going back to my earlier observation that there needs to be government intervention involved with, and listen, I'm not necessarily, like, I'm pro-capitalism sort of most of the time. I mean, in certain spaces it works, right?
Yes.
Like, but I don't know. There just needs to be some more redistribution of access.
Yes.
And it can be a great boon for your entire community if you ask people to sort of chip in. This is the, you know, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren, right? Pay your fair share. Yeah. 2 cents, right? Yeah. Can be a great thing. Like, you can have these sorts of things in balance if you set up the structure to do that.
Yeah. And also I think, you know, whether that's, you know, paying your taxes or donating to the Shakespeare Festival, which is a free festival in, you know, the park, or donating to, you know, Forest Park Forever or whatever in your, you know, community, you know, making sure that those organizations are supported because, you know.
Yeah, because these are the things that bring people out of their homes, out of scrolling on the internet, out of streaming their television, and they're like, all right, I'm going to go into a space and be a part of a community. And the other thing that I think is so great about both theater and sports, so what we're kind of been talking about is on a macro level, like bringing people together, but it also sort of really works on an individual level, right? When you're out, you're in a play or you're on a sports team, you have to interact with other people and you have to develop those skills and hopefully develop those relationships that make life meaningful.
Yeah. You know, I realized that this was a huge problem. This was, I think, during lockdown. And my stepson was, I think he was maybe 16 or 17. Sorry, Matt. Matt's never going to listen to this, so he won't care. But I remember one day, but this is not just Matt. This is typical of all, I think, most teenagers. He was like, "Hey, let's have pizza for dinner." And I was like, "Sure, let's have pizza for dinner." I'm like, "Why don't you call and order the pizza?" He was like, "No, I'm just going to order it on my phone." I said, "No, I want you to call. I want you to call and talk to a human being and order pizza, because we've literally been in lockdown and you haven't seen anybody. And let's just practice these skills." Mm-hmm. And he was like, "No." I was like, "Well, then we're not having pizza. Then you can have that crusty old meatloaf, like, Hungry Man, Stouffer's meatloaf that's in the freezer." He's like, "All right."
Great.
He would rather eat the crusty meatloaf Stouffer's than call and talk to another human being to order whatever kind of pizza he wanted. Yeah.
I feel like Scott Galloway would have things to say about that.
Yeah.
It's like proven his metrics right.
Yeah. But you know what? Now this kid is amazing. He works in a restaurant. He is with people all the time.
Yeah.
He works like in the kitchen. Like he is a sous chef. So he is chefing and listening and, and interacting. He is in like the most intense of human interactions all the time.
Yeah.
Which, just shows that, we can learn. It's a skill. It's a skill.
It is.
We can, when we're out of the practice of it, it can be scary and intimidating, but yeah.
Okay. How do we land this plane?
I have another kind of thought about this idea of communities, particularly in sports and theater. And that is like how these very public areas of community react to what is going on culturally in the world. Mm-hmm, so, like, if you remember, when George Floyd died, there was a lot happening where, athletes would come out and kneel or they wouldn't play.
Yeah.
And there was this like community response with the players. In theater, there's been all kinds of things that have happened. And, this is, I just wanted to share this, and I think this is really interesting. I don't know if the Guthrie is still doing this. So the Guthrie is the big regional theater in Minneapolis. Okay. And usually what happens in theater is when you choose a season for like any kind of big regional theater, you choose, or any smaller theater for that matter, you basically choose your season of plays, a year or more in advance. So there's it's difficult for your season to be really reflective of the zeitgeist of the time.
Yeah.
Even though playwrights themselves are probably writing,
in the moment.
But they're not necessarily being produced at the same time. Right. So it's really important, I feel like, where like sports can react. They can have their, like armbands or, different kind of rituals that show, embodied solidarity in the moment. But for theater, there needs to be kind of more kind of guerrilla movements that allow it to be more reflective of the time. And the Guthrie did this thing, which I thought was really amazing, which was they actually built an extra space, an extra performance space that they were going to keep mostly empty to produce things in the moment when they happen.
That's interesting.
Isn't that so cool?
And the other thing that's interesting about that, makes me wonder, is like both the ability to react, but then also the ability to have time to sit with something and really think about it and reflect on it, and there's something I was just listening to, and it was, I don't know, there's some open letter that went out. It was not the AI thing. But it was like something else. Letter AI. I know, it was something else. But this woman tweeted like, within like 30 seconds or a minute of this letter like being released, it was like, I already signed it. It was like, okay, so you didn't even read it, right? Like, there's something about cooling things down sometimes in a way that I do think, and so it's good to have both. You know what I mean? Like, it's good to have both. So it's good to have that space to say, I want to produce something that's reacting in real time, or like having, athletics where you can have something that is more immediate, but then also to be able to have that experience of, I'm going to write something, I'm going to think about it, I want to refine it, and then go through the process of production. It's valuable to have both of those things.
Yeah. I years ago, actually after 9/11, I went to New York the season after, the Broadway season after 9/11 happened.
Wow.
And I saw 3 plays, and it was fascinating because I was like, how is this going to kind of filter through into what I see in these stories?
Yeah.
Like, what stories are we telling now?
Yeah.
And we weren't telling stories about terrorism, but I saw 3 plays that all told stories about, it was interesting, violence towards children.
Whoa.
I know. And it compelled me to like write something around it, because I was like, what is it? And what it felt like, and I don't even think I really understood it then. I don't know that I understand it now, but I think that there was a sense of this, that we lost some kind of innocence as a country, and that we felt like, as this toddler nation, that we had been kind of that we had this intense violence enacted on us, and it came out in these stories, in these 3 very different stories. So, I do think, you're absolutely right. Like that, those 3 plays came out of that kind of allowing things to cool down and to settle and to filter and to marinate and all those metaphors, and then come out. But it's interesting for us to kind of, look at those things. And then, when we talk with Adam and Ben in the next episode, the things that they're doing are super immediate to our community. And what does that look like to do art that speaks in the moment while it's happening?
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk to them. So please tune in to our next episode when we talk to
Adam Flores
and Ben Hockman,
and talk about theater and sports and their intersection in our lovely city of St. Louis. See you then. Erin and I want to thank our listeners. The support and feedback you all have given us on this journey mean a lot to us. If you're looking for a way to help us out, please subscribe, rate, comment, and share with a friend. It really does help a lot in these early stages of a podcast.
Atheist is produced by Justin Seiwell and Trend Media Productions and can be found on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening, and keep looking for connection.